Hey guys, just a little short video. Just wanted to present some of the responses to a YouGov chat, um, which tackled the topic of whether you support or oppose scrapping the license fee altogether in 2027. Apparently, that is when it would next be considered. Um, And I found some of these responses quite interesting. Not to say too much about them, let's just have a little read. I'm not sure I can see that scrapping it would cause many complications, but I disagree with the fee in principle, said one person. Next one, why should we spend this much when my household only watches the BBC once or twice a week? And I would certainly find myself in that camp. It literally would be once or twice a week, and even then, it's literally only BBC News that I would be likely to watch. Um, but the fact that I do watch other live TV means that I am liable to have to pay for a license. Um, This one says the problem isn't with the BBC, it's the government cronies that run it. The BBC should be independent from government and funded by the licence payer. Next one down says the BBC is the only non commercial channel we have. In this country, I don't want to be like the US with endless adverts every 10 minutes. Their programming is generally very high quality, particularly nature programs. Well, I disagree with this one to an extent, in as much as um, the advertising is something that is set by the channel themselves. There's no necessity as such to have endless adverts every 10 minutes, and in fact, there does come a point where an audience will go elsewhere if they find that the advertising is excessive or too intrusive, or whatever phrase you want to use there. In relation to the nature programs, I actually personally view the BBC as um, putting out misinformation, all the stuff about climate change and so on. I don't think they really have anything to back it up with. And that's why I'm opposed to what's been said there. Times have changed and alternatives are now readily available. Also, BBC try to be trendy but are so out of touch. Yep. I rarely watch the BBC. Shetland is the only programme I watch regularly, and £173 is a hell of a lot to pay for one programme. BBC should be a pay-per-view channel, then the Beeb will realise how little we like their choice of programmes and might give us something worth watching. And there indeed is a very good point, that if they were subject to greater competition, then they would have to compete. I mean, let's just work this out. 173 pounds per year comes out at £14 a month, which is actually more than double the cost of my mobile phone contract at the present time. It's certainly more than Netflix, and in fact, it's more than a couple of the options from Netflix. I currently have the one screen without adverts option, and it comes in just under half of that, I think. So yeah, it's odd. Why should we be funding the BBC to that extent? This one says it's important to have a news medium that's free from commercial considerations. whether those come from government or from advertisers. It's hard to really, there's always going to be some kind of influence, isn't there? This one says, nothing on it worth watching as the shows are dull, very poorly written, and try to tick boxes for some but not others. I find that the BBC is becoming very racist, and I'm assuming that's supposed to be some reference to misandry, which some people may not know is basically is like the male equivalent of misogyny. So misandry is the other term there, where there's a sort of an unreasonable hatred of men, is maybe how I would define that. Yeah, and I mean they say they try to tick boxes for some but not others, and I presume, well, there's lots of that happening. The BBC would probably say themselves that they are attempting to what's the word I'm looking for? They're attempting to positively discriminate. Maybe they wouldn't even use the word discriminate. To celebrate diversity, is that it? Celebrate diversity and showing people from cultures that are very small minorities, probably in reality, and whilst there's a sort of an educational slant to that, at the same time, it can come across as slightly exclusionist at times. The licence fee means we all pay for a public service broadcaster, but keep it separate from taxation. Keeping it separate from taxation keeps the BBC independent, and therefore not a government broadcaster. The BBC is a magnificent organisation, and I'm happy to pay the licence fee. I don't think we can really say that in its current form the BBC is independent, because of a variety of things, well, not least of which the fact that the licence fee can be influenced by government, and of course the fact that Ofcom regulates the media here. This one says the BBC is the closest we're ever going to get to a politically neutral, balanced and truthful media source. Cutting the licence fee or forcing BBC to use an advertising or commercial model would lead to a serious slip in standards and it becoming as biased and untruthful as other media in the UK, for example, newspapers. Why would it? Why would doing away with the licensing fee cause this slip in standards? Would Ofcom not still regulate their the output? I think they would. So this one says the licence fee is becoming a ridiculous amount of money, and I think people have generally lost faith in the BBC. It stings having to pay such a large amount of money for something I barely watch when I can't afford to heat my home. Nobody should be going without heating and being forced to pay a TV license. That is obvious. Those were the new comments. I want to go to the hot ones because I haven't actually seen them so far. Okay, so that's one that we had already read, I think. It should be independent from government and funded by the licence payer. The BBC is the only non-commercial. Okay, yeah, we've read that. So are the hot ones just the same ones as we had before? Let me see. Yeah, we read that. And that. I'm looking for anything new but hot, so to speak. Oh, here's one I haven't read out yet. Their news is completely biased. Sorry, excuse the spelling mistakes in this, but their programs are unwatchable. They don't make any good motoring programs anymore since they got rid of Clarkson, Hammond, and May. They are anti-British, which I find extremely offensive, especially considering their name, and there are so many options out there now which offer far better programs on demand and cheaper prices too. The BBC British Bashing Corporation is outdated and no longer fit for purpose. That's one point of view. Another one here says nothing on it worth watching as the shows are dull, very poorly written. Okay, yeah, that we've had that one. There's the one about heating the home. That's another one we've read. Here's a very good point. The BBC is a disgraced organisation which harboured the likes of Savile, Harris, etc., and their reporting of news is completely biased. Other people might say, how long are we going to batter them over the head about Jimmy Savile and Rolf Harris? Quite frankly, I think that's very justified because at the end of the day, let's remember that Jimmy Savile in particular used his position in the BBC and his resultant fame as a key to unlock the door to many a vulnerable child, literally. And it is absolutely abhorrent that people who were aware, and there were a great many, it's abhorrent that not only were many of them not listened to, but many of them were actually silenced and sidelined, I'm pretty sure, when they did try to speak out. Right, this one says, I'm not sure I can see that scrapping it would cause many complications, but I disagree with the fee in principle. Here we have, be careful what you wish for. The constant bashing of the BBC, orchestrated by the right-wing press, is nonsense. It's the envy of the world. Watch TV abroad, that's what you'd get. Well, I can quite honestly say, hand on heart, sometimes I do watch foreign TV online, and I find it to be of at least as high a standard, if not even better, than the BBC's output. This one has the BBC are a bunch of hypocritical people who report on false news. They protect paedophiles, which is disgusting. Have people got such a short memory? They lied about COVID, they lie about the news, they basically lie about everything. I don't support criminal organisations, and paedophilia is a crime. There's absolutely nothing they can do if you don't pay for a TV licence at all. Do your own research. If you can't be bothered, then that's your problem. So strong sentiment there in that one, and I'm not saying that I agree with everything that's been said there, but I present it as is. I think you'll find that if you don't pay for your TV license, there are things that that they can do. But yeah, it's not great. This one says the BBC probably does the best documentaries of all media companies. However, the rest of the programmes are either poor or entirely, I'm going to suppose that should be rubbish. I don't know. I mean, I've seen some good documentaries on the BBC, that is true. I've also seen good documentaries elsewhere. Channel 4 actually in the past used to do documentaries that were pretty good. Certainly they were good at doing investigative reports. I get the feeling that since Jon Snow has left Channel 4 News that things are not just quite the way they used to be. And since that time, most of the news companies don't really seem to go into any degree of detail on the stories they are reporting on, and that's a pity. But yeah, I mean, I've seen some fantastic documentaries online as well. I think is there a documentary channel? I'm not too sure. Certainly the Discovery Channel does do quite a bit of good content. And it's not true to say that that they do the best documentaries of all, or at least in my opinion, that's not necessarily true. Right, last couple of comments. Don't watch any BBC channels or listen to BBC radio, so forced into paying for services I do not use. And that's nearly the situation I find myself in. In that if you watch live TV, even if that's on a phone or a laptop through YouTube, you're still required to pay a license fee for the pleasure of doing that. This is the last one I'm going to read out, and it says its presenters should be unbiased but are not, and they are paid far too much money. £1.6 million for Gary Lineker, totally not worth it. So there you go, guys. That's just some of the comments there in response to the question of whether you support or oppose scrapping the license fee altogether in 2027. If you would like to express your view, feel free to do so in the comments section below. And don't forget, you can watch me on Telegram at t.me/cheapskatestreamer. Thanks for watching.